Hello, hi, welcome to my presentation. I'm going to be going through street art, cubism, Dada, conceptual art, minimalism, op art, constructivism, constructionism, brutalist architecture, and then I'm going to be going through my zine with you. I think street art is a good place to start, as it's existed for as long as human creativity has. Cavemen documented their lives on walls as Romans did, as World War II soldiers did, as everyone else in between, and everyone else still does. When you think of modern street art, you tend to think of spray cans on brick walls and the use of stencils, whether that's illegal walls or Banksy pieces being sold for millions, but street art is more of a human instinct, in my opinion. A more defined art world art movement is Cubism, arguably one of the most influential art movements. Cubism was introduced by Picasso in the early 19th century, and it's a movement to reject the idea of 3D forms being portrayed on 2D canvases, as realism always has. It analyses the shapes in a different way and is portrayed as a type of abstraction. Dada was another from the early 19th century. Artists, poets, and freethinkers gathered in Zurich amongst the war and felt the appropriate artistic response as a protest movement was to be deliberately absurd. They mocked politicians and influenced modern art in comedy and music and protests, and it was often satirical, radical, anarchic, and nonsensical in nature. Conceptual art is another type of abstract art. You could claim its origins in the movement sparked by Duchamp, as the found objects were questioning the idea of what art is, and in conceptual art, the idea or concept behind the art is the most important aspect of the artwork. It means all the planning and decisions are made beforehand, and the execution is a perfunctory affair. The idea becomes the machine that makes the art. Kind of contrasting from conceptual art or expressive art, minimalism is a movement that appeared in the 60s, and it kind of removes those emotions and ideas and leaves you with objects in a way that makes you aware of the space in a way that other art doesn't. For example, it doesn't allude to you that a chunk of rock is anything other than a chunk of rock, other than sculptures do. A lot of people find this quite calming, so a lifestyle has actually sparked from this movement. Op art is another major movement to pop up in the 1960s, using geometric shapes and lines and psychology of the way our eyes process visual information, and using that information to trick us and trick our eyes into seeing movement in art is a trippy one. It's cool. Constructivism was an artistic and architectural philosophy that originated in Russia beginning in 1913 by Vladimir Tatlin. It was a rejection of the idea of autonomous art. He wanted to construct art in the favour of art as a practice for social purposes. There's a lot of influences on graphic design and industrial design. And following on from constructivism, we have constructionism, which is a British movement following on from constructivism from the 1950s, further exploring constructive art using naturally occurring proportional systems and shapes in geometrical art. And last but not least is brutalist architecture, flourishing from 1951 to 1975, and originating in Western Europe. Quite post-war architecture, easily identifiable, massive, monolithic, blocky appearance, like geometric shapes, mostly squares and rectangles, and a large scale use of poured concrete. I've saved this one for last because it's one I've decided to focus on for my zine. There are a lot of these kind of buildings in Coventry, and the use of squares kind of reminded me of the colour swatches we used in the Coventry Colours project, and I thought that the colour swatches and these blocky buildings would go well together. So this is my zine. I've put yarn on the front cover. Inside I've started with a picture of a brutalist building in Coventry and put side by side lines of grey that go through on the other side. Drawn the skyline onto these two pages. Thought I wanted to make use of this section in the zine that the pages can open out. Next page, I've got another picture of a brutalist building, and I've taken colour swatches from the image drawn from the Coventry Colours project. On the last page, I've made use of the pages that are folded together and highlighted the shapes of these two buildings. Did also make some practice zines, so they're all made of one piece of paper, and here I was exploring ideas of how to fasten those pages. I ended up using yarn, but here I was exploring folding them. This one I got quite a lot more adventurous with how much I can stretch one piece of paper and keep it intact as one piece. And I got quite explorative with my own personal doodles. But I quite enjoyed making these pieces. And that's pretty much my whole journey with art movements and making zines. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for listening.